Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com here in New York City to get a hands-on preview with the new Nikon Z7. We get to play with the adapters, we get to play with a bunch of the native lenses, and also any of the AFS lenses. Now, before I go too far, I just want to say that everything that is captured with this camera, this is a pre-production model with not finished firmware, so none of this is fully official. So that's why this is just a preview and a little bit of the hands-on part on how it feels, and a little bit that I can tell you about using the camera, but just know that this is pre-production, beta firmware, and it may change by the time that the camera comes out. So first things first, ergonomics. When you pick up this Nikon camera, it feels just like any other Nikon camera. You have a super big grip. You have a nice thumb thing in the back that allows you to hold it naturally. The menus function just like any other Nikon menus function. It's real easy, it's real simple to use, and it just makes sense because that's what you expect when you pick up a Nikon, especially myself as a Nikon shooter for the last 15 or almost 20 years at this point. It just feels right and it makes sense. Another thing about the grip is that some people may find that they have trouble reaching these two buttons, these function 1 and function 2, that are inside the camera right here next to the lens. It may be a little difficult to get there. They could be in an awkward position. It would be interesting to see if they could ever put a touch-sensitive panel inside of the grip right here, but in this case, I can reach them. It's just a little awkward to get to those buttons. But let's get to that memory card thing. Right here, one slot, one XQD slot. I asked them why one XQD slot. The best answer that they give me is size. If they needed to make the camera bigger, or they would need to make the camera bigger if they needed to put in 2 XQD cards. Also, if you put in an SD card, it's going to go much slower than the XQD card, which is much faster. So you may see 2 cards in a camera in the future as they get into the higher end sports model. It's just one of those things. This is where they started. I would harp on it forever and ever, but that doesn't do us any good, so it is what it is at this point. If you don't like that, then this camera isn't for you. If you can get past that, then there's a lot of really cool features with this camera. So I also want to let you know that we're actually shooting this video with a Z7. It's in the continuous autofocus, and when we tested that out, it was actually pretty good on the face detect. So it tracked me in and out of the frame as I moved around, as I got closer or further away. We're also shooting in 4K full frame. We're not in the DX crop mode, so just wanted to let you know that's what we're doing. So we figured it would be a great opportunity to use the camera so that you could see how the video looks. Now, Steven just switched into the DX crop mode, which gives us a 1:1 pixel readout. So this is what it looks like. It's amazing. I don't really know if it's amazing because I haven't seen it because he's shooting it right now. But I also want to make it clear that this part is the only part that's being shot with the Z7. Everything else was shot with the Sony A7 III with a 24-70 2.8 lens. So now let's talk about shooting. I love EVFs. One of the things that I noticed right off the rip is that when I took the camera away from my face and put it back up, there was a little bit longer lag in getting the screen to turn back on, so it was black for about a second, maybe a little less than a second, but it took it a split second to then turn back on from switching from the LCD. Now, while I'm talking about that, I might as well just show you, this does not flip all the way down. I don't know why. It's kind of stupid that it doesn't. It flips up so you can shoot down low, but if you hold it above your head, you cannot flip this all the way down. Now back to the EVF. What I love about EVFs in general is the fact that I can see my exposure right in the camera. There is no guessing because I see the exposure. I know my shot's going to be great. Well, not always great, but I know that the exposure is going to be right on and I don't have to chimp to double check. What we think is pretty cool is that we can connect the Atomos, the external recorder, to this camera, and then you should be able to see all of my changes from the focusing points moving to my exposure, which is going to be a great teaching tool in the future if it works out just like I hope that it does. Nikon did a great job of making the EVF stand out further away from the camera, whereas with the Sonys, it feels like my nose is touching the screen the entire time. The Nikon has it further back with the EVF, so I can hold it up to my face and my nose isn't cramped against the back of the screen. That's something that I haven't felt with any of these cameras up until this point, so that was really good. Now, in terms of shooting, the autofocus is fast, but with the 35 1.8, which is what Steven's shooting with right now, I could see it moving. It felt a little slower than what I was used to with the AFS lenses on a DSLR. Now, when I switched over and put on the adapter with the 70 to 200, it felt like I could feel the motors moving in the lens. I've never felt the motors moving in the lens when I'm shooting with my DSLR, which means that these don't have the linear stepping motors. These have the twist turn motor, so maybe there's a different way of it focusing with a mirrorless camera. So that's something that I let Nikon know that I really wasn't too keen on, that I could feel the motor shifting. Now, the focus doesn't seem to be as fast as a DSLR at this point, but it is pretty quick. It acquires quick, it hunts around, not hunts around, but it will acquire something that moves, or if I switch to the background, it's going to find it, and it moves fairly quick. I did notice that the focus button seemed to, the focus points moved a little slower than I wanted, but Steven double checked on the Sony and said that it seemed to be a little faster than the Sony moving, but it's not as fast as what I've seen with my DSLRs. One of the best features in the Sony cameras is IAF. It is amazing, it works really well. Nikon's trying to do something like face detect AF, not so good. It tracks a little bit, but it definitely doesn't keep up. So if you're looking for IAF, the Sony's going to be the one to get if you need that. But also, while we're talking about Sonys, a lot of people say, well, I'm just going to jump ship to Sony. If you already own a lot of Nikon glass, there is no reason to jump ship. You are heavily invested in all of this glass and you already own it. Like me, I have 16 lenses for my Nikon system. I can use all of them on this mirrorless camera with the adapter without a problem. Now, one of the things that some people may think could be a problem is outrunning the buffer. But as soon as I filled the buffer, took my finger off the trigger, the shutter button, and started shooting again, the buffer was cleared because those XQD cards, I almost said cards, but there's only one in the camera, the XQD card is really fast. So I know a lot of people are gonna wanna know, can you adapt third-party lenses to the Z mount system? I tested it out with a Sigma 50 1.4 art lens and it did work. It focused. Now I can't tell you whether it's faster or slower than normal, but it worked. So that's something if you were looking to know the answer to, yes, the Sigma lenses do focus, at least with the one test that I did, on this body with the adapter. Now, silent shooting, that's something that you get with this camera, and we know that on occasion I want to shoot silent. Did I get flickering? Yes. I don't remember what the shutter speed was, but the flickering was there under the LED light. And with silent shooting, unlike with most of the Sonys, there is a blackout in the viewfinder. So when you take a picture, there is a clear blackout in both mechanical as well as with the silent shutter. So that's something that I hope they speed up in the future, but off the rip, it's not that bad. So the first experiences with this camera, yeah, it's a Nikon. It feels good. But again, this is a preview and this is a pre-production model, and I really want to take this home, which I'm not allowed to do just yet, and use it in a real-world situation. So we're not doing a review yet. This is just a hands-on preview with some general thoughts based off of using this particular pre-production model with beta firmware. So if you have any questions, you can leave them down below. I'll do my best to give them an answer. But until the next time, check out the preview video if you haven't yet, if you want to see all of the specs. And that's it from New York City. Thank you very much for watching. Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com. See ya.